know some of you are probably just like me, where we just love to just sit around and people watch whenever you have a moment of time. Well, I got a fantastic quote for this, and you can observe a lot just by watching, by Yogi Berra. Now, for me, I love to go around and people watch, just sometimes go around the park and just watch people go by, because you can learn a lot about them just by what they do. But you can also apply this to several circumstances in your own life. For me personally, I learned a few things just from my family, just by watching what they do. My dad, to me, is a great driver, so I've always watched what he did whenever he was driving, just to see when it was my turn, how to act, how to maneuver, when exactly would be a good time to apply the brakes, anything like that. My dad is a really good backup driver as well, and he always parks backed up. And that's something that I actually have adopted myself. Anytime I go to park, I'm almost always backing up into the parking spot instead of just going head on. I've also been a very good backup driver just because of that habit. Another thing I've actually learned from both my brother and my dad, which might seem a little weird since I'm a girl, but I've learned how to make the best scrambled eggs for my brother and my dad. I never really thought there was anything wrong with mine until I ate my brother's and my dad's, and they just seem to be much more fluffy. I'm not really sure what it is that they do, but it seems like it's just the way that he cooks them, and then they just kind of let them sit in there a little bit longer. I don't know. But I've tried to adopt ways that similar to that as well, and my eggs have gotten a little better, but they're still not as great as theirs. A professional example would be in my work, as I'm sure some of you remember, I do work in a hotel. And when you start working there, the main thing you do for training is to observe and find out how you're supposed to act, the mannerisms, what to say, and whatnot. Well, because I work at the front desk, it is a very heavy customer service, among other things. So when you first start, you have to learn how to talk to people, make sure that you're saying sir or ma'am. You want to make sure that you have certain facial expressions that apply to the situation. Like if they have a complaint, as I've mentioned before, we actually did have a customer complain about birds in the trees actually going off in the morning, because apparently that's not something that they're used to. So you have to try to sympathize with them. You can't just look at them like you're a freaking retard. They're birds. So you want to try and be like, oh, I'm very sorry about that. We'll see if maybe we can have one of our meanest people shoot them away, or come up with something to try and appease them. Another thing with that, when I first started there, I used to wait after I was done with my shift and just work with the people that work overnight, just to see things in the system that I didn't know about yet. So I would watch what they did, see what reports they printed out, talk to them about why those reports were needed. And I've actually become so good with the system that I have other people calling me, even though I'm not a supervisor, at all hours of the day, just trying to see how they're supposed to do something. And I can actually tell them step by step over the phone. I don't even need to be in the same vicinity as they are. And I can tell them exactly how to do it. I can tell them hit C, it says this, you have to go down 3 pages, blah, 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 blah. Just because I've stayed and watched what people were doing. Another example, which I'm sure all of you are doing, especially ones that have not actually gone up to do your own speech yet, you're watching me right now to find out what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Such as if there's any kind of a nervous mannerism, or if someone's saying too much, which I'm hoping I'm not doing. You just want to sit around and make sure, okay, well, I like the way that she's saying that. I like the way that she's doing that. Oh, well, I don't know, I think she's moving too much, or some other thing. You're watching to see what I'm doing so you can make sure you either apply it or don't apply it to your own speech. And even if you already have gone, you want to remember for the next time that you go up for a speech, oh, okay, well, next time we have a speech, make sure that you don't do that, make sure you don't do this. So it is a very good quote to apply to life. I do agree with it 100%. Even if it's not just for people watching, it does go for every aspect of your life. Even if you're just making scrambled eggs, learning how to drive, even if you're just trying to be more professional in your work aspect, or as we are all doing here, learning how to do a good speech. So you can observe a lot just by watching, by Yogi Berra is an excellent quote to apply to life. Thank you.
I like the greeting and the shared experience you have at the beginning of the speech, and you make a nice transition, and you've got a clear point of view on the proposition, or I should say the thesis statement that you're coming up with. Your preview is not as distinct as it could be, although the material ends up being well organized. I thought you started off with 3 pretty solid examples, and then you follow up with a couple of other examples that seem to be sort of dumped in at the end, and I'm not sure if they were planned or if they're just things that occurred to you while you were speaking. If they could have been fit in some of the other places, I think it would have made a little bit more sense. I thought there was good detail on some of the examples that you provided, and I thought that made the speech a lot more interesting. Your voice does drop out a little bit sometimes. I'm not sure if you're doing that on purpose or if it's just a little bit of weariness with the length of the sentence that you've got at any given point. But there's good variety when you were speaking, and I think it's paced very effectively. They're naturalistic gestures for the most part. Your facial expressions are animated, and I think your eye contact with the audience is pretty solid. It's funny that you mentioned backing into spaces, because it felt a little bit like you were backing up away from us while you were speaking, and it's just an inadvertent sort of thing that you're doing, but you probably take just a half or step back or so while you're speaking, and you're already back a ways at that particular point, and I'm not sure why you're backing away, because you really seem to be engaged in what you're talking about. Also, you got to watch out about back-end parking, because in some places it's against the law. Like on this campus, you'll get a ticket for it. Don't you hate that? You know, we ought to be able to, head out parking, but no, you're not allowed to do that. So be careful about that. I thought that your anxiety was really pretty well controlled. That was the only thing that was maybe a little bit problematic, and it wasn't that big a deal. All right, thank you. Howdy, if you would. Come get a topic and send Taylor in.